Hey, everybody. I'm Mary Rose Somariba. I'm the editor-in-chief of Verily Magazine. I'm so glad to have you with us, and your patience has been just amazing. Thank you, guys. And I'm so happy to introduce you to all the ladies who are here. I'll just go around and introduce everyone, but then I also want to tell you a little bit about what's going to happen this evening. So first, I'll start with Maggie Brady, is a contributing editor, associate editor at Verily Magazine, and she hails from Ohio. And she is going to talk with Nancy Miranda today from Braver Angels. And Maggie just interviewed and has a fantastic piece in the fall issue of Verily with Nancy. And it's on Braver Angels, which is a group you'll hear all about, and as they speak about it later in this talk, and introduce the work of Braver Angels in helping to facilitate civil discourse between people of disagreeing viewpoints, the reds and the blues, and how to not lose ourselves in the course of treating others as human beings in our conversations, and to keep engaging each other and having connection. And which actually ties very much into why we're having this event, is because our fall issue is a connection themed issue. And then I'll just go right along and introduce you to Julie Larkin, who is from our Girl Talk. And Julie is going to be speaking about the work of Girl Talk in helping to connect young women, any woman really, but is started out with college-age women, and now it's grown, but it's connecting women in groups to keep in touch and just be there and have each other's back. She'll talk more about her work, and it's so vital. And then I also have Carolyn Ferguson with us. Carolyn Ferguson is hailing from Maryland, and she is for Verily working and helping us in social media and some marketing. And she's just been such a great helper. Some of you may know her from the days, or she still is maybe involved with Vigil Magazine, another magazine that's her brainchild. So we're so happy to have all of these ladies together. I'm so happy to be with you all. It's an honor to participate in this conversation. And I just wanted to just start off by telling you all a little update. Those of you who are subscribers, our fall issue is going to press. So we're very excited to hold that in our hands. And it's just filled with so much great stuff. We have, like I said, Maggie's piece on Braver Angels, but we also have just a ton of beautiful things. We have a gorgeous photo shoot from Paris that Sophie Caldecott, our creative director, produced. She conceived of it, she organized the stylists, and it was just gorgeous. And of course, you just can't go wrong in Paris, frankly, in my very, very strong opinion. So it was just a beautiful photo shoot. Our whole theme was on connection, and it's embodying not only beautiful vintage wear, but girls like girlfriends, a vibe of going out and just connecting with your girlfriends. And we wanted to get that across. And speaking of vintage, Sophie Caldecott also wrote a piece in the magazine, which was such a touching story about how her grandmother used to be a 1950s model, and she has passed down her vintage clothing that that was like designer clothing. And how feels connected to her grandmother who came before, even though she didn't know her very well, but feels connected through those clothing. And it just brings into question how we treat our clothes, how we treat those who make our clothes, and how we stay in touch with those who came before us through our clothes. It's just a very fun piece that I think everyone should read. And we also have a piece on tough topics. We have a piece on being a survivor of assault and domestic violence. And that was an anonymous writer, but it's a fantastic and important piece to help women understand the different experiences and to support each other, and how this one young woman, she shares how she left a bad situation, but it also shares how people, how to reach out. So there's all sorts of great pieces, and we really, really would love your support, because we are just thrilled to share this great stuff, and we want to share it. So we encourage everybody, at the end of this call, we're going to be sharing an email, sending you all an email with a promo code for a $10 off subscription. And if you do take advantage of that, you will get the fall issue right out of the press. So without further ado, I would love to just go into it and talk about connection and how important it is. Oh, and y'all, I'm in Pennsylvania right now because I just was attending the Pennsylvania Conference for Women. And it was just a huge conference with over 8,000 people. And Tina Fey was speaking, and I was just introducing Verily to people who've never heard of us. And at one point, I was just really struck by, I was just realizing after pitching this concept, we don't have Photoshop. And hey, not only do we show real women, but we want to be real throughout the magazine. We want to be relatable and not be giving fad diets and unhealthy stuff and bad relationship advice, like how to get back with your boyfriend who you shouldn't, or something. And so your ex-boyfriend in 10 days, just silly stuff that's clickbaity, but really not healthy. But even when it comes to fad diets, when it comes to unrealistic imagery of women, it starts to become life and death. And we knew that eating disorders were a problem. We've known it for a while. And part of why Verily exists is to combat that. We show women of all sizes and healthiness is the key. But we also don't Photoshop women to completely impossible standards of beauty. So we've always known that, but then even more so, the mental health crisis is getting worse and worse with the imagery online being edited by everyone. And we understand it's tough. It's tough to compete with it. And even came out in some of the conversations I had with people today. They'd be like, "Oh, take a photo of me. Oh, but wait, I'm like, don't, you look great." So anyway, we're not judging if anyone's ever used that editing software. We're just saying we're trying to normalize real beauty, and we'd love you to be a part of it. But that just reminded me of the importance of Julie's work at Girl Talk, and we have an exciting collaboration coming up that we can tell you about with Girl Talk. But I just wanted to introduce Julie Larkin's chance to tell us a little bit more about the work of Girl Talk, because it is life-saving, and she's got a very powerful story she shared at Verily about it. And you can tell us a little bit about how you started it and what you do.
Sounds good. Thank you so much, Mary Rose. I'm so thrilled to be here. It's such a joy to be here with all of you ladies and everyone joining us on the webinar. Yeah, it is totally life-saving. And first of all, I love that you saw Tina Fey. I wonder if she's joining us tonight. That'd be kind of fun. But our work with Girl Talk is so vital. We're so grateful for it. This is something that I started back in college as a way to really meet the need and the desire to belong and to connect. So that's why I'm so excited to talk tonight about having better conversations, going deeper with connection, and having greater community, because that's what I experienced back in college. I was meeting hundreds of girls. I was in an RA role in college where I was meeting all these freshman women who were really just exuding this desire to belong and really struggling, feeling so alone in thoughts of self-harm or disordered eating or anxiety, depression. I mean, all of these dark moments. And then just kind of your typical freshman year jitters, right? Anytime we're in a season of change or transformation, whether that's starting a new relationship, getting married, having a baby, moving to a new city, right? It's change, we're transforming, and we need to kind of find our roots, right? We need to stay grounded and connect. So these women that I was meeting in this new step into college were really feeling that anxiety in many, many ways, and really struggling with it. But even though everyone was struggling, they all still felt they were the only ones going through that. So we kind of met that need. My poor roommates, I made them stay up night after witnessing kind of all these really difficult things. I kept saying, like, what are we going to do? How are we going to help these girls? How are we going to solve this? And we decided to do it like every good venture begins, with chocolate. So we just had a night of a little girl talk, and we invited all the girls of Ryan Hall out to a lounge filled with pillows and blankets and cupcakes. And I just shared my stories. right? I just said, hey girls, guess what? You're not alone, right? Like, here's when I've had my heart broken. Here's when I desperately wished that I had someone else's skin, that I used Photoshop, right? Here's when I desired these things. Here's when I was hurt and wounded and made mistakes. And here's how I found hope and healing. And so I was vulnerable with them, right? And through my vulnerability, the girls met me with empathy, and they thought, oh my goodness, I'm not the only one. Someone else understands, right? So they met my vulnerability with empathy. And then what happened? We made a connection. We had this beautiful connection, and not only between me and the girls, but between the girls and each other, right? So all of a sudden, the struggling C student looked at the straight A student who was sharing how her sense of perfectionism drives her crazy and really is difficult for her. And so all of a sudden, these two seemingly polar opposite girls saw eye to eye. And the girl who counted calories in the corner was all of a sudden seeing this picture perfect with a little less judgment in her eyes, and had this empathetic moment of, oh, she's worried about how she looks too. And she has the same desire to be loved that I do, right? This is universal. We think we're all alone in our own little boats, but we are made for this connection, right? Brene Brown says that we are made and wired to belong cognitively, spiritually, physically. We are designed to connect and belong with each other. And when we do not connect, we break. Things go wrong, right? So she details this in all of her research and stories on self-worth and empathy, shame. So we know that it's actually really important. And as Mary Rose mentioned, sometimes it can be life and death, right? The girl I encountered right before we started Girl Talk, right, attempted her life with a suicide attempt, right? There are these girls who really struggled, human beings who really struggled. And it can also be all of us, right? Like every day we struggle. I'm originally a Jersey girl. I grew up in New Jersey and started this Girl Talk work in college in Washington, D.C. And I've been there for the last 10 years, building this sisterhood of self-worth. And now I'm actually out in the Midwest, experiencing a little Chicago, windy city, and loving it, because I'm here finishing my degree in clinical mental health counseling. So I'm meeting with clients and just being confirmed in that conviction that, yes, we all struggle. Every single person has this desire for belonging, this desire for intimacy. And it's so common and real for us to doubt ourselves and think, oh my gosh, is there something wrong with me? Why didn't that person say hi to me? Why don't they like me? Why can't I make friends, right? We all have these questions and insecurities. And so again, it's just being confirmed that you're not alone. You're not alone in your struggle. We kind of all desire this belonging. So that's how Girl Talk got started. And then fast forward 5 years, we had kind of snowballed into work with middle schoolers, high schoolers. We're now working with moms and professionals. But fast forward 5 years from that original Girl Talk, and we were hosting another college campus. We call them coffee houses, where you're cozy, you're all snuggled together and having a good time. So this girl who we call Brooke was hosting this coffee house. She had Taylor Swift blasting. This was before Travis Kelce, and we all still loved and knew Taylor Swift. And she had the lights going. It was just a really fun environment. We were dipping Tostitos and walking through the room. Everyone's hugging and saying hi. She had about 40 girls in this room. And she started to tell her story, right? And when Brooke shared her story, she was detailing some of the darkest moments of her high school days, and how it was just really hard for her with boys and alcohol and friends, kind of these classic concepts that everybody goes through, right? And so she shared her difficult moments in those situations. And then what happened was incredible. This sweet, shy girl who was just kind of sitting in the corner, just kind of doing her own thing. She kind of sat up and she just said, Brooke, thank you so much for your story. I wasn't planning to come tonight until a girl in my a cappella group invited me. And she said, oh, I think Girl Talk sounded kind of fun. She said, I was actually heading into the library today and making the plan to kill myself tonight. But she came to Girl Talk instead, heard Brooke's story, and she said, I had struggled. I experienced a sexual assault, and I thought that it was all my fault. Right. So this poor girl had the weight of the world on her shoulders, right? Dealing with so much shame, so much anxiety, so much depression, right? It was quite the burden for her to carry. But because she heard this vulnerable story from Brooke, she was able to kind of see, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one who struggled. And her story wasn't even the same. They were dealing with very different things. And so this girl stood up and shared this. And then another girl from across the room said, honey, I've been in your shoes too. And you know what? I didn't have the courage to say anything. Thank you for having the courage to say something. Why don't we both walk to the counseling center together? And we were just, oh my goodness, blown away by Brooke's vulnerability. She experienced this empathy from this sweet freshman girl. And then there was this connection that was made. Again, we call this at Girl Talk the connection cake. It's being vulnerable, it's having empathy, and then you connect, right? That's where real friendship is born. We love a classic C.S. Lewis line where he says, friendship is born at that moment when one person looks at another and says, what? You too? I thought that I was the only one. And so really that's kind of what we play out every single time at Girl Talk, right? These difficult moments, more fun moments, kind of the everyday struggles, the everyday situations, but it's women connecting with women, heart to heart, face to face, to have these experiences where they say, oh, you get it. You understand me. Thank you so much. And so that's really the essence and the heart of Girl Talk. And now, we have these college coffee houses. We give talks in high schools and middle schools. We started a program during the pandemic called Mom Talk, and that's where we work with lots of different moms and women. And my goodness, talk about feeling lonely and isolated. I can't tell you how many moms I've heard from who just feel to this day, I'm all alone, I'm in my house, I'm raising the kids, I don't have any friends, or if I do have friends, our sentences are cut short on the playground because we're just kind of talking and then we have to go grab our kid from the slide or whatever. They're just like craving this really deep connection. And that is something that we love with our work in Girl Talk, that we're able to bring these people together to have real friendship in these small groups that Mary Rose was mentioning. And I think it does all go back to these three core values of Girl Talk. It's that vulnerability, that empathy and connection. And vulnerability does not have to be deep and dark and the hardest thing. Vulnerability really is just showing up in a very real way, exactly as you are. I'll share that story in a second, but vulnerability is being real. Empathy is kind of receiving that realness, and then you form a beautiful connection. Verily asked me to share some practical tips as to how to live this out when you gather with women, when you gather with friends, and you want to have those deeper conversations. And I would say there are these 3 C's. So to be confident, to be concrete, and to be courageous. So to be confident in knowing that I'm worth having a conversation with. I'm worth your time. I'm worth my time. I saw the most hilarious video on Instagram the other day. This reporter was interviewing Heath Ledger, and this woman walks by and she just screams she's so starstruck. She's like, and Heath Ledger goes over and just plants a kiss on her face. And she is just like in total disbelief and awe. And the reporter puts the microphone to the woman and she faints. She just faints. She collapses. Which, maybe not an everyday occurrence for us, but I was thinking about that and I was like, girl, you just got kissed by Heath Ledger, like have that confidence to stay standing. or just to have the confidence to be worth a good conversation with someone. I would say also to be concrete, right? How many times do we say, oh, let's grab lunch, we should totally do dinner, and then we don't concretize it, right? But to say, hey, I'd love to get to know you better. How about coffee on Tuesday at Panera, you know? And then that sense of being courageous, right? It is scary. It is scary to connect with someone. It's scary to take that leap when you don't know someone so well. But again, to remember your worth and theirs, and to think this could be a really beautiful friendship. Okay, do I have a couple more minutes, Mary Rose? Can I share this? Okay. Okay, so fast forward another 5 years from those moments at Girl Talk that I was sharing, that Brooks Coffee House. This past spring, I went with my friend Renee. We went over to London and we spent a few days in Devon, England. Picture Stars Hollow meets Lord of the Rings Shire, and you have this beautiful, charming, absolutely beautiful little town, and in Ashburton. And Renee's friends invited us over for dinner, so we went to have dinner at Sophie and Greg Caldicott's house, and they set a beautiful, beautiful spread, so hospitable. It was so charming. And we get to chatting and find out that Sophie and I both really share in a passion for the dignity of women. And we get to talking, and Sophie shares, oh yeah, I'm the creative director at Verily Magazine. And then I have my starstruck moment, right? Verily Magazine, the magazine that got me through my 20s and has been so formative for me. And she says, we should do a collaboration. Verily has this incredible content. Girl Talk has this incredible community. Let's marry the two. So Sophie and I had a meeting of the minds, but truly it was a meeting of heart to heart. And that's where we formed this new partnership. And this idea was born that Verily and Girl Talk would come together with a passion for the dignity of women, and that we would start this program that takes the content of Verily with the community of Girl Talk. And we are launching a new partnership come this January. And we're really, really excited about it. We can't wait. And we'd love to invite you all to join. So the partnership essentially entails regular get-togethers of women in small groups, 6 to 8 women in pods meeting. And the content of those connections, those deeper conversations, will launch from the content, the articles of Verily's print magazine and online magazine. So we are just thrilled for this. Again, it launches in January. It'll run January through March. So it'll be a 3-month season. And registration will open in a couple weeks, but the waiting list will launch tonight. And I believe Mary Rose will send out a link for anyone interested in signing up for more information. So that's a little bit about the work of Girl Talk and how we like to go deeper into these connections. And it's really through conversations with vulnerability, with empathy, and with connection.
Thank you so much, Julie. And yes, everyone, this is their exciting news that Julie just announced that, yeah, after this meeting, after this event, we're going to send you guys an email that has more information about this collaboration with Girl Talk and how you can sign up to learn more and be on a waiting list to be informed as we launch it, as we get closer to January. So we're so excited to share this with you and to connect, because so many women say, like, I feel so like the world's so crazy and I feel like Verily gets it. And so if you want to connect with other Verily women, this is a great opportunity. And so thank you for sharing that as well, about how to have better conversations, woman to woman, girl to girl. You got to get together. And this is a great opportunity for all of our readers to participate in that. And we're so excited to start it. And then, we're about to reach the holidays, and it's going to come at the time when we might have to have discussions with someone we disagree with. So why don't we just segue right into Maggie? Why don't you start telling us a little bit about how to have what you learned from talking and learning more about Braver Angels and talking with Nancy about how to have better conversations with those we may disagree with.
Sure. So hi, everyone. So glad we're all getting together tonight. Thanks all of us who are joining us, especially our readers. And so I'm Maggie Brady. I'm an associate editor at Verily. And again, our fall issue coming up is all about connection. And I don't know about you guys, but I think for a lot of people, honestly, it's really hard to connect with those around us right now. I know it is for me. Because we're in a moment, we're going through a time in our culture where when two people disagree with each other about something that's important to them, we're tempted to mistreat each other. We're tempted to name call, stereotype. We kind of want to disconnect and burrow back in with our tribe who thinks exactly like us, the people who don't make us work that hard. And even when you don't want to do that, even if you don't want to burrow, just knowing how extremely judgmental our society can be, it makes it hard to bring your authentic self to conversations, right? Because it's scary. It's scary to think that you could lose a connection or lose a relationship, even with somebody maybe we really care about, just for telling your truth. It's incredibly uncomfortable, but there has to be hope, right? So for this fall connection issue, I wrote about how we can try to work on that problem. And it was really interesting. I talked to Destiny Herndon de la Rosa, who runs the group New Wave Feminists. Some of you may already be familiar with that organization and their work. But basically, NWF does activism across what we would consider traditional political boundaries. So they're anti-abortion, they're anti-death penalty, they're pro-refugee, they're feminists. Of course, feminist is in the name. And what Destiny told me, and what I learned over and over again as I reported out this piece, is this has to be a self-improvement project. Another self-improvement project, yay. Because there's no one simple trick to getting other people to be open-minded, to get other people to be non-judgmental. But we can take care of ourselves, right? We can learn how to engage people in a way that invites them to do better and to really listen to each other. I found that, that dread, that feeling in the pit of your stomach when you're leaving your house to go to work, and you notice that in the dark of night, your next door neighbor has put out a lawn sign, terrible political lawn sign, and that discomfort, a lot of it is physiological. So we can sort of control a lot of that anxiety that makes it hard for us to interact fruitfully just by caring for our nervous systems, just by noticing how our bodies are reacting to what our body perceives as a threat that doesn't actually pose a physical danger. It's just, the crazy old lady next door, we're not actually in danger, but our bodies don't necessarily recognize that. We can choose to be brave and take up space, even though it's uncomfortable. Learning to tolerate a certain amount of discomfort, part of being connected in a community. Outside of a cult, there's, every community is going to have stuff that they don't disagree about, or that they don't agree about. So we just have to accept that discomfort. Part of it, I think, is everyone has kind of gotten out of practice. So it can be hard even to articulate what we believe and why we believe to somebody who thinks a totally different way. So speaking of being brave, I also wanted to introduce Nancy Miranda, who is also with us tonight. I interviewed her also for this Peace in the Fall issue. She's the Ohio State co-coordinator for Braver Angels, which is a nationwide organization, which is tackling this polarization issue head on. So hi, Nancy. Thanks for joining us. How are you doing
No,
tonight?
thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, great. Wonderful. So could we start right off? Could you tell our community, what is Braver Angels? What do you guys do?
So Braver Angels is a grassroots bipartisan organization whose mission is to help depolarize our country and bring people back to the table to start having a civil conversations. We have about 12,000 members. 94% of our active members are volunteers. So, and we have alliances throughout the country. We have three. I'm from Cleveland. We have three here in Ohio, and we actually have one over in Europe for our expats. So that gives you a little understanding of what Braver Angels is.
Wonderful. And you guys facilitate conversations between groups of people who aren't on the same page about various issues?
Yeah, we offer a lot with Braver Angels. Some people say it's almost overwhelming. One of our big offerings is workshops, which you're referring to right now. We have workshops that we call skill building workshops, where we help people learn how to communicate, such as we have a workshop called Depolarizing Within. And in that workshop, we're asked to look at within ourselves and see how we propagate polarization when we're hanging around our own little group. We also offer a great one around the holidays called Family and Politics, to just prepare for those Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners. Then we also have workshops where we share and discuss. Our premier workshop is called the Red Blue Workshop, and that's where Braver Angels started with. And in this workshop, we get 8 to 10 reds who lean right and 8 to 10 blues who leaning left together to talk about what their differences are, more importantly, what they do have in common. And coming out of this workshop, our research has found that 85% of people who attend a workshop come out feeling like they have a better idea of what the other side believes. And I think the stat is about 71% feel that the other side is really starting to understand them. So we spend a lot of time trying to get people to the table.
Mm-hmm. And those are pretty good results to feel better about, that people understand each other. And you folks do debates as well. I believe your national debate is available on Zoom, correct?
We're having one right now. It's called Media Bias, and it's going on right now. And everybody could catch it because they're always taped. Our debates are nothing like what you see as our presidential debates. I always kid that some of our debate chairs should be the moderators for our political debates. They follow the parliamentary format, very structured. You know, all your questions go to Madam Chair. They're timed. Everybody is respectful. Nobody overtalks one another. So, and they cover everything. Like I said, today is media bias. We had one on masculinity. We had one of companies just for profit are immoral, from abortion to immigration. I don't think there's any topic that they're afraid to tackle.
That's awesome. So you personally, can you tell the story of how you got involved in Braver Angels?
Yeah, it was about 2 years ago, this past August, where this whole craziness, I guess is the only word I could describe it, is what's going on in our country was really starting to bother me. And I'm sure a lot of people here, maybe that's the only thing you've ever known. But me, I lived through where people actually got along and reached across the aisle and worked together. And I just saw it constantly getting worse. And I was concerned, this is not what I want to leave my grandchildren. So I thought, I could sit around and worry about it, or I could do something about it. I was actually ready to start an initiative, march down to my city hall and talk to the mayor and city council and talk about getting the community together, when I happened to be on Facebook and I saw a post about Braver Angels. And I said, wow, let me take a look at this. And I went on the website, and probably within 10 minutes, I was a member. And I said, yeah, they did it for me. I didn't have to go create this organization. It already exists. So it's probably the best decision I've ever made. And then that following spring, I was asked to be state coordinator for Braver Angels. I share the role with Bev Hortzman, who's my peer down in Cincinnati. So, and we're just, Bev and I really support Ohio and our alliances and spreading the Braver Angels world throughout Ohio.
Awesome. So Braver Angels really does help build skills. It's basically, it's a skill that people have lost.
Yeah.
Being able to talk to each other without going bananas. So I thought I'd get your insight about some of these. Braver Angels has online workshops as well. If any of our readers, maybe you're not prepared to go in person yet, but there's online workshops you can take too that can sort of lay the groundwork and help you skill up. So I thought I'd get some of your insights about some of these skills or tips that Braver Angels gives for conversations. One of them is, don't apply your own labels to the other person. There's that famous Barbara Bush saying that labels are for cans, not for people, which I always loved. But do you have any thoughts about that, about avoiding labeling people?
Well, we have in Braver Angels, we have an acronym. It's called ILAP, ILAPP, and it's sort of our guiding rules on having civil discourse. The I stands for invite, where you ask somebody if they would like to speak about an issue and explain their view on it. Then the L for listen, and I think that's the most critical part, is to really step back and listen. Shut off those thoughts in your head where you want to counter. Listen to the people tell their story and ask questions out of curiosity. Don't ask gotcha questions like, what do I saw on Fox or what I saw on MSNBC, but really try to understand why they believe what they do. The A is for acknowledge. So you repeat to them what you thought they heard. And that not only shows that person that you were really interested in listen, but it also confirms that you actually heard what they had to say.
Mm-hmm.
Then the first P is for pivot. So now you ask that individual if it's okay if you could share your opinion. And then the final P is for perspective. Now this is all sounds so sequential and easy to do in a workshop environment. In real life, it's all mixed up, but the same practices are there.
Mm-hmm.
You just really need to listen to somebody's story, respect them, and trust them, and understand how they got to where they are. When you start doing that, when you start listening to a person and hearing their story, they stop being a stereotype. The temperature goes down a bit. You start to look them at a person rather than, a liberal or a conservative or a right winger.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy. It doesn't always work, but you keep trying.
Right. It's funny. It's for those of us who have had marriage therapy. It sounds a lot like marriage therapy. And one of the founders of Better Angels, Bill Doherty, is a very well-known, prominent couples therapist. So
yes, he is.
That makes sense.
And he developed all our workshops. So
Right. So he incorporates a lot of his insights. Sure. Another one of the tips they have is don't try to change the other person's mind. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Well, absolutely. At Braver Angels, one of the things we say, we are out to change people's views on each other. We are not out to change your mind. So if you come into the organization as a conservative, as a liberal, You're not going to be hijacked by a group from the other side trying to convince you to switch sides. That's not our purpose at all. We just want people to understand each other. If they find something in common, more the better. But that's not always the case, and that's okay. That's okay. As long as you could just start understanding why people think the way they do.
I read a tip about, think about you're writing a novel, and this person is, you're writing a character who has the view you disagree with. What could be motivating them? Trying to put yourself in their shoes, to understand them, because you're probably not going to write a monster for your great American novel.
Well, I use the analogy when I'm speaking about braver angels, and they just use this. I took like gun control. And so if you speak to a mom who maybe lives on the south side of Chicago and she can't send her child out to play for fear they're going to be gunned down, and you talk to an avid hunter who lives in rural Ohio, they're going to have a pretty different view on gun control. So when you listen to their life story, at least you could respect and understand why they think the way they do. We all have different experiences that form our opinions on things.
It's hard to hate somebody once you know their story.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. And then another tip is, don't assume the other person holds any particular views of a party or a leader, unless they say they do. So it's kind of, I'm in the Cleveland area myself, so it's sometimes folks treat this kind of stuff as like rooting for a football team or something, like, and so I must love Deshaun Watson. Well, not exactly, but even less so when it comes to these issues. So do you have anything to say about that?
Well, I think we all stereotype each other. I think if you're on the left, you have stereotypes about conservatives. You're on the right, you have stereotypes about the liberals. But when you start to meet people, those stereotypes just start falling apart. I was in a meeting, Northeast Ohio Alliance meeting yesterday, when we had breakout sessions. People love to talk at Braver Angels. They truly love to discuss, and they love to discuss with the other side. And, we were in groups of mix, red and blue, 4 or 5 people. And really, it's surprising that when you start talking about things, you're starting to nod and really say, well, I might not agree with you completely, but I could see your point, and I'm sort of seeing it. So,
Absolutely. Any other habits we can develop? I mean, obviously, everyone should try and join Braver Angels if possible. But are there any other? Do you have any other ideas for what we can do to try and foster civil discourse?
I think it's more respect and trust, and learn when to walk away. Some things are just not worth it. It is just not worth it to argue. That happened last night. We were just there, one particular issue, and I saw emotions rise. I saw some anger going through. I saw other person just shutting down. I just said, let's shut it down. Let's move on. It's not worth it. You can't talk civilly when your emotions or your anger are at such a peak. Maybe you could come back when you're calmed down, maybe not, but don't ever try to discuss when you're angry and emotional.
Right, or when you're hungry.
And when you're hungry or tired, or yes.
Absolutely.
Got to be in the most comfortable environment possible to discuss some of those hot topics.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Nancy. I really appreciate your insights.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Maggie, for leading that great conversation, and Nancy for your work. I just honestly, hearing about it more, even though I've known about, what you're doing, and I've read the article that is coming out, I just was hearing this again reminds me how much this is important for every aspect of conversations. Like, if I get involved, which I haven't done it yet, but you very much intrigued me. But if I were to practice this, and yes, I'm scared, if I were to brave it and to practice these habits you're discussing, like in like real time with other human beings, I think it would help me in all areas of my life, actually, to be more brave to talk, maybe not about political issues, but with some very personal issue, with some other person that is very different. Like, so with different life experiences, I think it would help in every way, just like you mentioned, like marriage therapy, like it just
Yeah.
helps you practice listening and acknowledging someone's life experience that led them to their beliefs, and yours are different, and that's okay. And again, sorry.
Try our workshops, like depolarizing the within, or skills for bridging the divide. Those are two of the best ones to start out. They're on our website. Most of those are national, so you could participate from anywhere. And they all do have breakouts where you actually get together, and so it's not like a lecture format. You practice your skills and you talk to one another. So I'm surprised. I always thought I was a great listener until I went to one of those classes. I said, nah, not at all. I still have a lot to learn.
Oh, wow. Well, that's just so encouraging. And it also tying into what Julie's work. It reminds me, the ultimate goal feels like a girlfriend to girlfriend vibe. I tell you, I have friends from college with whom I have very different views, but that does not change our close friendship. And so it does remind me of like what kind of friendships deep down are. And that's what we're trying to provide at Verily with our community and with our ongoing work and our collaboration. So, well, we're about to wrap up here. We've had a fantastic time with you all. I want to tell you about some exciting things coming up, some of which will be detailed in this email coming out to you after this call. Geez, I'm in work mode all the time. Right? After this great time with you guys. So I do want to mention, again, in this email coming out, we'll have 2 bits for you to keep your eye out for. The waiting list, for those interested into the Heart to Heart, which is the collaboration we're doing with Girl Talk. And we'll have a link there. It's tinyurl.com/heart-to-heart-waiting-list. And you probably will just wait till you get the email, but it's a link for that. And there's also going to be a coupon code for $10 off an annual subscription to Verily, getting 4 issues a year, the quarterly print subscription for you or a friend. You can get gift subscriptions too. And it's valid through the end of December 2023. And it's the coupon code you want to use to get that $10 off is Verily Treat, because it's just in time for Halloween, and why not treat yourself? So yeah, keep your eye out for that email with those details, and one more email next week, which will have the replay of this evening. And if you want to stay in touch, make sure you're on our newsletter if you haven't already. But please keep your eye out for that. And also you can find out more about our panelists' work. You can find out more about Braver Angels at braverangels.org and Girl Talk at ourgirltalk.org. And thank you guys so much again. And we are so happy to have you and just to have your support and your readership and your community here at Verily, as we're just trying to continue to help the world and help women with better media. And so thanks for being a part of it. And